Good evening. I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. As Arizona's official voter education agency, Clean Elections is proud to sponsor these debates. Our mission is to ensure that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions about the issues that impact your life, and head to the polls with confidence. To make sure your voice is heard, please keep these upcoming deadlines in mind. October 5th, voter registration deadline. October 7th, early voting begins, and November 3rd, General Election Day. If you're watching this debate live, we want to hear from you. You can submit a question for the candidates at any time using one of the following methods. Email debates@kc-a.com, text 480-769-9511, phone 480-937-1253. Thank you for joining us and for staying engaged in our democracy. For more resources to help you prepare for the November 3rd general election, please visit our website at azcleanelections.gov. Enjoy the debate.
Good evening and welcome to the Arizona Clean Elections debate for Legislative District 19. I am Joe Ferguson, a reporter with the Tucson Agenda newsletter, and I'll be your moderator tonight. I've been a political reporter for the last 16 years, primarily working here in Southern Arizona, and I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona. Tonight, you'll be hearing from candidates who are running for 2 House seats and 1 Senate seat representing Legislative District 19. We're going to start the evening with our House candidates first, and then take a quick break and come back with our Senate candidates. The House candidates participating in tonight's debate are Democrats Aidan Swallow and Jackie O'Donnell Anderson. Republicans Lupe Diaz and Senator David Gowan, who's running for the House this year, were invited to tonight's debate but declined to attend. The district, which has a land area slightly larger than Delaware and Vermont combined, is anchored in Sierra Vista, Douglas, Benson, Wilcox, and covers 5 rural counties and a large swath of the Mexican border. In a separate debate tonight, we'll talk to Democrat Bob Karp, who's run in several legislative campaigns over the years and is giving it another try against Republican Gail Gifford, who's seeking the Senate seat this year. Griffin has chosen not to participate in tonight's Senate debate either. Here's how the debate will go. Each candidate will get 90 seconds for an opening statement, and then we'll spend a few minutes getting to know these candidates as people before talking about politics. We'll dig into the core districts facing the issue, and then ask each candidate to explain how they would vote on a real bill, initiative item on the ballot this year. Time permitting, we will do a rapid fire round, and then we'll finish with 90 seconds closing statement. To start, we flipped a coin, and we want to first thank both candidates for being here tonight. Jackie, we're going to start with you for the 90-second opening statement. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. This is new for me because I have never run for an office in my X amount of years that I've been on Earth. I've been in Arizona, Pima County, actually, for 32 years. I worked 19 years for a local hospital that was a rural hospital, considered rural. It was a critical access hospital. And I left that organization. I was laid off, and I went out and did some travel type nursing for a couple of years before I finally retired 6 years ago. My primary focus has always been the emergency room nursing, and I was manager. I've been a director. I also have done risk and quality in the last 6 years of my career as I closed down because I got tired of the 12-hour shifts. Even though I was on call 24/7 when you're a risk manager, it's still different. It's very different than being at the bedside for 12 hours. I've done every form of nursing that you can imagine. I have never done labor and delivery, but I have delivered a few babies along with the ER physician many, many nights in early mornings because sometimes the crew couldn't get in time. With that being said, I'm very interested in healthcare, and that is what brought me to this place now. I thought I do not want to be on the sidelines anymore. I need to try. I know these 5 counties fairly well. I know because my daughter did 4-H back in the day, and we were all over the state with various events with and without her horse. And so I'm very comfortable in the rural community. I live in a very rural community myself in southern part of Pima County. And with that, I decided, let's try it. So I got interviewed, I was given classes, and I worked every day for the last 12 months in one way or another. I did clean elections. I had to go out and get my 426 petitions signed for my ballot. And then I had to get my 200 folks to give me $5. And I was successful on both of those. And actually I went over on my numbers. It has been an adventure. Yeah, it's been an adventure.
Sounds like it has been. We're going to move over to Jackie and give her a chance, or sorry, Aiden, to give her a chance to talk. You're up next. Please tell the voters who you are and why you're running.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. My name is Aiden Swallow. My nickname is Addy. A little bit about me. I grew up extremely poor in almost my entire life. I grew up in South Carolina, and the only way out was to join the military. So I joined the military at 18 years old to escape poverty. Despite my appearance, I was in the military for 19 and a half years. I am turning 38 this year, so I'm a little bit older than I look. But I spent a lot of time in the military doing intelligence work. Actually, I spent the entire time doing intelligence work, which is what brought me originally to Arizona and Fort Huachuca specifically, because I spent most of my time as a human intelligence collector. That's where I interrogated, ran source operations, and I even have done some advanced courses and advanced techniques out in the field. My deployments included Iraq and Afghanistan. Both were as a human intelligence collector. During both of those, I ran multifunction team operations and interrogation or human collection team operations for Iraq and Afghanistan. Upon about 2014, I decided to get my degree in game design, and I went from active duty and decided to join the reserve for some time. And during that time, I also went over and became a counterintelligence special agent. I then deployed to Southwest Asia, Southwest Asia, where I did investigations, led national security investigations, and investigated people for national security crimes like treason, sedition, stuff like that. After that, it was at the height of COVID, but I was invited to come back to Sierra Vista to instruct. So I was promoted to Sergeant First Class, E7, and I came down to Sierra Vista, where I then began instructing at Fort Huachuca in 2019 up until, and I still live in Sierra Vista in the same house once I came down here as an instructor. I taught intelligence and leadership courses. I taught human intelligence courses, counterintelligence courses, and a myriad of leadership courses to include advanced leader course and senior leader course. I then was in 2025, in 2025 I got the word. In 2026, early 2026, it actually happened. I was kicked out of the military at 19 and a half years, no retirement, no separation pay because of my identity. And once that happened, well, back in 2025, before I was even officially kicked out, I decided to run for office. At the time, I was the only person challenging the incumbents, and I decided to run against them because it's the same people who have been running. They're career politicians. They've been flopping chambers back and forth. And I decided I was tired of it. I was tired of the BS, and I decided to fight back. So in the military, you learn sometimes if the leader doesn't present themselves, sometimes you have to be that leader and stand up. So that's what I did, and I've been running the campaign since then.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to our first round of questions, but first, a quick reminder for the viewers watching online. You can submit a question to the candidates at any time tonight. Our email is debates@kc-aid.com, or you can text 480-769-9511, or give us a call at 480-937-1253. Our first segment is going to be about who you are, not your policy positions, but what has shaped you, how you think, and what you do if elected to office. Each candidate will have approximately 90 seconds to answer. So the first question is, if you weren't running in this race, what would you be looking for a candidate to get your vote? Aiden, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest reasons I ran was because I felt like on both sides, candidates are very fake. They don't show any personality. They just say what their party tells them to say, and that was one of my driving factors. So if I was looking for a candidate, I would want somebody who's real, somebody who has hobbies, somebody who doesn't just give me political pundit speech and talk their talking points. Somebody who's not perfect. That's who I would look for. That's really the main point. I know it's not 90 seconds, but
Please don't feel free to fill the time, either one of you. Jackie, same question for you.
Regarding why I'm in this race?
No. If you weren't running, what would you be looking for a candidate to get your vote?
Oh, I would definitely would like to have someone who was in the 65 plus range, because number one, we are retired. I came out of retirement. Number two, I am not a political campaign. I would like to see more of that. I would also like to see younger, like the 30-year-old, like Aiden is, but that's not going to happen on this round. And it's very challenging. I can't talk to the 20-year-olds very well, but I can talk to the 65 plus very, very well. And off of this, the reason is when they were going to cut access, which is Medicaid in the United States, we call it access. I can tell you nightmare stories of trying to transfer patients to get them the best care they need, and they are on access, and the reluctancies of transferring and or admitting because their reimbursement is low. Well, now it's going down to zero. And in November the 4th on through January of 2027, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of hardworking people who have in an aging issue, have retired, are slowing down, are going to lose their health care. That's what bothered me. I realize this is a federal issue, but it's going to hurt us at the state level. And as a state legislature, I need to be there at the table along with 30 plus more Democrats so that we can make some serious changes and to fight Dr. Oz at CMS. He is he's harming. When I was in risk management, the level is, what harm have you caused the patient? Or how is this going to harm a patient? It's the same way. Is this going to harm Arizonans? And so far, all of the laws that have been passed in regarding to healthcare of all ranges is harming Arizonans.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our second question. I'm going to ask you to describe a time in the last 2 years where you've changed your mind about something that's politically based and what changed it. Jackie, I'm going to start with you on that one.
In the last 2 years, well, yeah. I never, that's a really good question. I've made a lot of, you have these bucket lists when you retire. And I thought, well, I'm going to do something different than get out of my skin and become uncomfortable because I'm seeking and learning something new in my life, even though I'm not, quote, working. So I decided I was going to hold off, but I decided I need to experience electric cars because I felt like that was a energy saver for me. It's oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe how much money I saved having an electric car. And I was helping the economy because we were going to have a new group of people to learn how to care for a different type of automobile mobility, whether it's a car, truck, etc. Motorcycles, don't forget them. And so that really opened my eyes, because then I started going into all kinds of other green energy issues. I have a small piece of property, and I have 200 kilowatts of power, and I never thought I could do this 2 years ago. I was on my way, but 4 years ago I thought it wasn't going to happen. And it's something time. If you like to do something, you have to keep pursuing it and keep learning and talking to people who have, what you want to do.
Great.
And I know it's nothing politics wise, but it was something personal for me.
Perfect. Aiden, I have the same question for you. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
All right, so something that I've changed my mind on, and this is political for this particular area in general and for Arizona. I've never really been a fan of solar energy. I've heard a lot of the gripes and complaints that came from it, and I've in some cases seen the backlash of residential solar, and sometimes that can be a bad deal for some people. But recently I've come into actually learning more about non-residential solars and keeping and having energy sustainable, especially for Arizona. And I've over the past 2 years have not only done more research, but I've even advocated. I was part of the group that got a solar project approved unanimously in Cochise County, actually, because of my testimony. So I've become a pretty staunch defender of solar energy, especially when it comes to in industry and when it comes to renewable energy that everyone, by the way, in the state benefits from. Especially when I realize that if you live in the county where the energy is gathered, sometimes you get tax breaks and sometimes you get dividends put on, or your utilities are lower, which all of us could use lower utilities right now. So solar has I've started to really start to admire solar and look into that a lot more.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Our third question is about asking you both about something you've built, started, or led that you're proud of, and what did it teach you? So, Aiden, we're going to start with you on this question to go first.
Okay, so I think my best example I want to give is something I built, started, or grew, and I would say that was my time as an instructor. I didn't actually realize that teaching was going to be a calling for me. In the military, you get a lot of assignments, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. You just kind of do what the military tells you. And I came down and I started instructing at Fort Huachuca, and it was one of my best experiences. I interacted with hundreds, potentially thousands of students, and I got to impart knowledge upon them, and I got to train the future leaders of the Army in the classroom. I taught them to be leaders. I taught them to be better intelligence professionals, and it was just one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And in some cases, if you're not in the Army, you might not know this, but there's always personal issues that come up, especially when you go TDY to a different location, and then solving their issues. That was probably one of my best experiences, is solving their issues and helping them with pay resolutions and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing I learned is just how to be a better teacher and how to impart my knowledge upon younger people or the next generation so that they can continue the work after I'm gone.
Great. Thank you so much. Jackie, I have the same question for you.
Oh, thank you for that question. I would say public speaking has been a real scare for me. I belong to Toastmaster for the last 10 years. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of people you get to know. And I was okay just giving speeches in small groups. So by starting this campaign, I had to come out and really struggle with this. And when I get nervous, I stutter a little bit. But I do much better in smaller groups, and I know that. So I work on that. And as I get more comfortable in larger venues, I think it'll come. It's just practice, and keep going forward. And the other part of that is to become a better listener. I know I really want to hear what other people say, because like you said, not everybody agrees with solar. Not everybody agrees with electric cars. Not everybody agrees with hundreds of other things. And we need to just stop and listen to why and where it's coming from. And with that, I'm really proud of how far I've come. This is probably my third or fourth public type of event. And but I haven't done anything like this in a big stage. I do wear hearing aids, so that does limit me sometimes to audiences, but I keep working on it, and I'm enjoying it now.
Perfect. That's great. We're going to move on. Thank you both for those questions. We're going to move on to the core of tonight's debate, issues that voters told us matter most in your district. I'll ask a question and each of you will get 90 seconds. After both of you have had a chance to answer, I'll open up a small window for a rebuttal or something you might add that you didn't get a chance to speak. So again, you'll have 90 seconds and then there will be a second chance to get a second bite of the apple. First question is about the Protect Education Accountability Now Citizens Initiative, which failed to get on the ballot, as we learned earlier this week. What, if anything, should the legislature be doing about ESAs? And please, both of you, try to be specific. Jackie, we're going to ask you to go first.
Well, thank you very much. My daughter graduated in 2002, so she did not have an issue with this particular issue in her school district, and her school district is very robust, and I don't see any real deficit with the ESA that is currently obvious. With that being said, so I've been kind of out of being an older mother. I haven't kept in touch with all the kids have grown, all of them left home. So my neighborhood is down to like three kids. So I don't know what's going on. But with learning, and for the last 2 years, I have attended just about every Democratic meeting of some sort to learn. And obviously, it was a law that had good intentions, and then it kind of got morphed into what we're doing now by offering people to have money to teach their children at home and or in a private school or in in some other kind of a venue. And I'm not sure all of the particulars about it, but what I'm noticing and I'm hearing from everyone is, and I didn't realize that, how much the budget has been cut for the last 15, 20 years, and why. And that's going to be my biggest question always. Why are we cutting when we should be adding more to our school system? Because technology, there's new courses. Now I understand, like my grandson, he was able to take online classes to do AP. He got his CNA license to work in as a certified nurse assistant while he was still senior in high school. I could not have done that when I was in high school, and my daughter did have some AP classes, but nothing like they're being offered now. Yep. So where is this all going? And also, there's also an issue of lack of transparency, I think, with the Department of Education, and there's no accountability. There's no public spreadsheet, dashboard to tell us where's this money going and why.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Aiden, same question for you.
All right, thank you very much. So first of all, it's a big blow that it failed in court, but we never should have actually had to resort to that. So the start of why the legislature is failing is because we had to do that in the first place. The legislature should have been reining in ESA vouchers for years now, and specifically what they should have been doing is there should have been accountability. There is tons of money being wasted on the ESA vouchers. People have filed and got reimbursed for lingerie, for cars, for a lot of frivolous and useless expenses that they never should have been able to file for in the first place. So accountability is first issue. Second issue is, and it's mainly on the GOP side, they are using ESA vouchers to basically be able to preach whatever doctrine and curriculum they want, because they don't trust the actual curriculum that public schools teach and that every school should be teaching. So there needs to be an actual an actual curriculum across the board. Homeschool, there's nothing wrong with homeschool. You can homeschool your kids all you want. A lot of people in this county do that, but they need to have the same level of education that they would get at a public school. Charter schools are oftentimes have unregulated, and they're oftentimes just religious outlets for them to be able to spread doctrine to kids and have no curriculum to back it up. So that's the problem there. And so what the legislature should be doing is the legislature still can solve this problem. So if they're not going to do it, then they're just being useless again. They can go back in and they can rein in the ESA vouchers themselves. We don't have to do that as voters. They can do that, and they should have been doing it to begin with.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. The next question is going to go back to you, Aiden. Data centers are becoming one of the most contentious development issues in Arizona. Where do you stand on continued growth, and how should the state balance the economic benefits of data centers with the opposition from communities who don't want them nearby?
Okay. Yeah, so data centers have become a big issue, and I understand some people's argument for them. Data centers, quote, create jobs and whatever, but that doesn't actually help the community. Those jobs don't go to the people in the community. They're not union jobs. They are jobs that they're probably going to outsource, or they're not permanent, so they're not going to help anything. Also, Arizona is a desert. Why would we bring in a huge facility that sucks water in the desert when we're already in a water crisis? It makes no sense. I'm sure that there are some data centers that have a modicum of ethical reasoning and processes, but they don't belong in Arizona. Period. This is the desert. You want to have a data center? Okay, fine. Go to the coast. Go to the East Coast or West Coast where there's a lot more water. Go somewhere else. Like that's where you can go. Stay out of Arizona because we can't handle data centers down here.
Great. Thank you so much. Jackie, I have the same question for you. What's your thoughts about data centers?
Well, I agree with that we live in a desert, and it's about water and electricity too. And they're not coming in to say that so they're just the business, but they have to ask for more water and electricity from a utility company or from a well, somebody's well. And so they're giving it, so they're giving the options, and then they get a cut rate from what I'm understanding, and I don't know if that's everywhere. So there's a lot of, to me, the business plan, and I'm not a business person, but the business plan doesn't look very sustainable. It looks like the building's going to be put up. They'll hire maybe 25, they'll hire the construction people, and then they're laid off, or that's the end of their work cycle. They hire a few people that can manage the building. And once everything is automatic and remotely controlled, all they could have is a night watchman. And then we're still losing our water, which is going to take harder and harder to replenish. And then the electricity is going to increase because of the usage of the chips in managing this product. So there's a lot of, I agree, this is not the place for a data center. It looks really fancy, the little building sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. But, there's no cars that are parked outside by it, except for maybe a few. And so, it's not, again, and they're getting tax cut from the county or the city, the community, whoever allowed it in.
Thank you so much. The next question has to do with politics. If the Democrats control the legislature next year, what responsibility do you have to the voters in your district who didn't vote for you? And when would you be willing to break your caucus to represent them? Aiden, let's start with you.
Okay, so, well, the Democrats will flip the House. It'll be the first time in 60 years that the legislature will be blue in 2026. But, let's just assume that, or when they do, I've always said that everyone in the district, whether they like me, whether they agree with me, whether whatever, it doesn't matter, they're still my constituent when I get elected. And so my duty is to them, and I will always look after the well-being of the district, regardless of the party that they have, and regardless if they like me. That's irrelevant. So what I, when I did, and I've also said this as well. I'm a different kind of candidate. I am not some sacrificial lamb for the Democratic establishment, and I'm not a fan of the Democratic establishment. I understand I'm a Democratic nominee, but I have no issue breaking caucus if I need to, if they decide to do something that I don't agree with. And they do many things that I don't agree with. So I will look at the issue for what it's worth on its face, and it doesn't matter what my party says to do. I don't my party is not my boss, the president's not my boss, no one else is my boss except the constituents. They are my boss, and so they are the only people that I answer to.
Okay, great. Jackie, the same question for you.
Well, I agree that the fact that we're going to be the legislature for everybody, and that includes MAGA and liberals and of course Democrats. I have some issues also, not as severe, but there's some things about the Democratic Party that I may not follow either. I will support everything they can, but based off of my practice as a nurse, I always look out for the person first. And what harm are we going to give these people? And is it a sustainable bill? Is this bill going to keep regenerating positive to help a person's through their life cycle? And I will talk to ranchers and farmers. Got to remember, I live in the county. I raised 2 mules. I had 5 mules and 3 horses. So I know a little bit about alfalfa and all the other stuff that goes in. And water and alfalfa is very important. So I can talk to I understand about watering the cotton fields and your Bermuda and your alfalfa. That is extremely important because that's feeding our citizens. So I will work towards that too. There's a lot I don't know, but I'm willing to keep learning. I may not walk too fast, but I still have a brain, and I study every day about one of these, one of the issues that is going on. I don't think I've really changed on any position, but I know that I will have my say in the legislature, my feelings based off of my personal knowledge at best.
Great. Thank you so much. Our last question has to do with when the Democratic Party has gotten something wrong, or when you'd be willing to vote against your party if you believed it was in the best interest of LD9. So, Jackie, I'm going to ask you for an example of what that might look like, where the party's values aren't the same as the values of those living in LD19.
Oh, that's an excellent question. Values is very important, and I'll have to say that one of the things the Democrats have not put together as well as they should is that what is our values and where do we draw the line on what is ethical and what is morally right. And there's things like we feed the hungry, we take care of the homeless, we make sure we try to get them housing, we help the seniors, we keep the senior and retirees from failing, and because they're aging rapidly. So there's a lot of issues in there. I would be very upset if they trampled on any person's life in that way. I don't think that would happen. I'm sure my other concern is how much corporate influence is going to occur when the Democrats become the majority. It's obvious that the current legislature has a lot of corporate influence behind all of the bills that are coming out of their sessions, and that's problematic because the bill should reflect our voters and our constituents, and not just the few, the 1%ers. It should reflect everybody.
Aiden, what's something the Democratic Party is getting wrong in terms of LD19?
So something that the Democratic Party, not specifically in LD19, I actually for the majority like. Now, granted, there's not many Democratic candidates or legislators in LD19, but so this is mostly about the establishment. And so after they lost the election back in 2025, they decided to start blaming a lot of people. They blamed a particular group of people for their loss. And that group of people happened to be trans people. They blamed them for their loss because they decided that they weren't specific enough or whatever stupid excuse they decided to give, and they were just looking for scapegoats. And so they started taking from the GOP playbook and finding random scapegoats and blaming them. And I don't know if I'm ever going to forgive the establishment for that, to be quite honest, because when you target a minority group and then blame them for a systemic problem, it's not my fault that you had a boring candidate. Don't blame a minority group because of that. So that's one thing I have with them. Another one, and it's a big one, especially around my age group, right? It might not be something that a lot of people talk about, and it's not really an issue that we really face on the legislature, but is also the Israel crisis. And another reason that they lost is because they refused to accept certain realizations, and probably shouldn't back countries who are openly committing genocide, regardless of who they are, regardless if you like them, and regardless who they're doing it to. It's not okay. And so it's those two things and I know people in my age group, especially millennials and Gen Z, really, really harp on these issues in particular as well. I don't know if people are willing to go back and vote for the Democratic Party because they turn their back on these two issues specifically.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to start to change gears now. And we're going to ask you to explain your vote. This is only about a minute in this segment, but this is how it's going to work. I'm going to ask each of you about how you would vote on one of the propositions that will be on the general election ballot. After I give you a short summary, you'll have about 1 minute to tell the voters about how you would vote and why. Tonight, we're going to talk about Proposition 319, photo enforcement cameras. In summary, the measure would require local governments using photo radar or red light cameras to get voter approval to keep them operating. Aiden, you're going to be up first. How would you vote on this measure and why?
Yeah, so I will just say some of these measures are really hard. You have to dig in some of them. They like to hide language and stuff and confuse you. But from what I've seen, when it comes to these cameras, is I think it's generally probably a good idea to not just randomly surveil people. And so I would vote yes on this particular one. I would actually support it because I think that voters should decide whether they are being surveilled or not. It's something that the government should have learned this lesson way back when, because back in the whole reason FOIA exists is because the government decided to use the CIA to surveil Black Americans or other people in America for no just cause, which is why the Freedom of Information Act, even exists in the first place. So we should probably not follow in those footsteps.
Okay, great. Jackie, the same question for you.
Can you repeat the
Sure, of course. We're going to talk about Proposition 319, photo enforcement systems. In summary, the measure would require local governments who are currently using photo radar or red light cameras to get voter approval to keep them operating.
Okay, yes, definitely the voters have to have a say for this. I remember when Tucson was doing this thing on Nogales Highway back in the 80s and early 90s. It was terrible. And I didn't have a vehicle with auto, where I had an auto, I could set my cruise control. And that was a pain in the butt. And I remember getting a ticket, and and it's hard. It's hard. I understand that. And I don't know did it improve our driving? I don't know. I think if the roads were repaired better, I don't think we would have been driving so fast. But I would definitely vote yes. The voters need to have a say in how we're being surveyed.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to a rapid fire section. I'm only going to give you about 15 seconds to give me a yes or no answer, maybe explain yourself in a sentence or so, but these are designed to be very short, quick questions. So first up is going to be Aiden. We're going to ask you the question of, in your lifetime, do you trust that your vote has always been counted accurately?
Yes.
Okay, great. Jackie, same question for you. In your lifetime, do you think your vote has been counted accurately?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is, what one word would your friends use to describe you? Jackie?
Courageous.
Great. Aiden?
It's 2 words, but radically transparent.
Fair enough. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a question about a road, a bridge, or an intersection in your district that has been broken for far too long. Aiden, can you name one for me?
Yeah, there's a few roads, but I would probably settle on I-19.
Okay. Jackie, same question.
I kind of agree with I-19, but the road that they worked on it and they should have took it down was the one on 83 that's coming out of Sonoyta. That one should have been redone again, and so that it was a different because you come in there at 25 miles to make that turn, and there's more trucks coming across that bridge. That's not safe. I don't like that. I mean, I realize they had limited land, but they should have done something different to that one.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much. We are at the end of our debate tonight. Thank you so much for all of your answers, and we appreciate all the thoughtful work you put into them. We're going to ask each of the candidates to give us a 90-second closing statement. And we want to thank our voters and everyone for tuning in and informing yourselves ahead of the November 3rd election. For official information, please visit azelections.gov. So, Jackie, we're going to go with you first for a 90-second closing statement.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. This has been a great experience, and I'm learning. This will definitely improve my campaign because as I forgot to tell you, when something happens or something goes wrong, you should do a risk assessment instead of blaming people. Sit down and do a real risk assessment to see where the steps were that was missed, whether it was human or not human, because we are not infallible. We are not perfect. We all make mistakes all the time. So that was the area there. Again, I try to be as honest and as thoughtful, and hopefully my integrity comes across. I truly I still have a lot to learn. I definitely my 3 keys, of course, is to protect our public schools and invest in more education opportunities that is affordable. Protect our water. We could do a whole session on water, of course, and because I have a well, I understand what wells are. My neighbor and I have had a couple of discussions about our well levels, and then making healthcare affordable. This is just it's a crime that we're allowing people to have to not go to a doctor because the insurance companies are just not going to pay. So that needs to be worked on in the future. Those are my 3 focuses. I'm willing to learn about cost of living, what's going on in different communities, because all 5 counties have some very unique issues with all 3 of these my top issues on my campaign. And they're very similar, but because of the terrain, the culture, and the weather, depending on what part of the state you're in, affects all of us.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aiden, we're going to close today's debate with you. So go right ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. You've heard a myriad of issues today, and you've heard a lot of opinions, and you've heard from me and Jackie. And through all of that, I think that you have gotten a glimpse of me and seen how the things that I can bring. I am accountable. I am I am authentic, and I am radically transparent. So you never have to worry about me lying to you or not telling you the complete truth, because it's just something that I understand and I breathe. The what what I want to say though is that a lot of people think that LD19 is unwinnable, that it's a GOP stronghold, and I'm going to tell you right now, they're wrong. If they're telling you that, it's because they're either ignorant of the actual culture or the dynamic, or they haven't been down here and they don't understand the shift that's happening, or they're lying to you. And I'm not sure which one it is, but they're doing one of those. I promise you, the math is there. And if we actually turn out, and that means independents, Democrats, even if GOP people wanna see change, then if we turn out, the math, we will flip not only one seat, we're guaranteed to flip at least one seat. One of them's going to happen, but we can flip both of them, and it'll be the first time in LD19 history that we do, because the math is there. And also, if the millennials and the Gen Z get out to vote, then it'll definitely switch the gears as well. Yeah. And oh yeah, and the last thing I will say is help me. Your vote on November 3rd will help me bring real solutions to rural Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you both of you for tonight's debate. And I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. We're going to take a small break and come back with the Senate candidate in just a few moments. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll be right back. Good evening, and welcome back to the Arizona Clean Election Citizens Election Debate for Legislative 19. I'm still Joe Ferguson, a reporter with the Tucson Agenda newsletter, and I'll be your moderator tonight. I've been a political reporter in Southern Arizona for the last 16 years, and have worked in DC, Phoenix, and Flagstaff throughout the years. Tonight, you're going to be hearing from one Senate candidate competing for the Legislative 19 Senate seat, Democrat Bob Karp. The other candidate in the race, Republican Gail Griffith, declined to attend tonight's debates. Since we only have one candidate with us tonight, this portion of the Q&A will be a Q&A rather than a debate, but we will follow the same general format. Bob, to get started, let's give you 90 seconds to tell us about why you're running.
And thank you, Joe. I'm Bob Karp. I am running for state Senate. Most of you may remember that I have run for the state legislature 3 times prior, in 2018, in 2020, and 2024. I have lived in Cochise County since 2005. I was a business person for 50 plus years. I've served on the Sierra Vista Planning and Zoning Commission, and also was president of the Southeast Arizona Association of Realtors and multiple listing service. I'm running because you just said something that I think everybody needs to know. Gail Griffin refused to debate. The Republicans have never participated in any of the 3 prior debates that I have been at. I believe that elected officials need to meet their constituents. They need to talk to the entire constituent group, not just the Chamber of Commerce and their own Republican clubs. I am running as an alternative.
Thank you so much. We're going to start with our first round of questions, but first a quick reminder for those tuning in. You can submit a question at any time tonight during our chat. Feel free to email us at debates@kc-a.com, text us at 480-769-9511, or give us a call at 480-937-1253. First, Bob, we're going to do some questions about who you are before we get into the politics of this. So to get to know you a little bit better, we're going to ask you to spend 60 to 90 seconds with each question. First one just takes us back to the moment you decided to run again. Where were you? What was happening around you? And what pushed you to run again for office?
And we're talking about in 2026. Okay.
Yep.
There's 3 others.
Sure.
And I'll be very honest. I ran as a write-in candidate because the candidate that was running for state senate did not qualify for the ballot, which was very unfortunate. And it points out how difficult it is for first-time candidates to run. And because I believe that we had to have an alternative to Gail Griffin and give the voters a chance to vote for someone else and hear what an alternative policy statements would be, I decided I would run again.
Okay. Outside of raising family, what is something you've built, started, or led that you're proud of? And what did it teach you?
I'm going to go way back to the 1990s. And I started a computer software company with 2 other people in my living room. It didn't turn out to be Apple, I'm sorry, but we started this company and it became a Microsoft solution provider partner in San Diego. And it grew from 2 people, 3 people originally to a payroll of 55 employees and a $2.5 million annual payroll. I am extremely proud of the fact that I helped build that company and ran that company. My employees got health care from the very beginning, and we did some extraordinary things. It is one of my proudest moments of creating that company and seeing it grow from 3 people up to over 50 people.
The next question is going to be a little bit hard for you as the county chair, but tell me about.
Don't tell them that.
I don't think we can skip, but
too late.
What is something that frustrates you about your own party?
It's a good question, and it's a reasonable question to ask. I'm going to give you that from the perspective of being down here in Cochise County, and it is a broad thing in LD19. Our inability to get younger people involved in the activism of the party. When I go to various party functions, and again, it's not a criticism, people are over 60 or over 65. I think I make a joke that the median age of my precinct committee people is 70. We have tried very hard to reach out, and the party needs to broaden its base. And down here, the challenge is how to figure out how to do it. I certainly understand if you go to Maricopa and you go up to ASU, they can get young people to be involved in party activities. But down here, it's frustrating. It is a challenge to broaden the base and also broaden it to underserved communities like the Latino community and the Black community in LD19. We haven't done a great job. We try hard every year, but we need to figure out new ways to do it.
Okay. We're going to move into the politics section of this political debate. So what do you see as the biggest affordability issue facing families in the district? And what specific policies would you push at the legislature to make life cheaper in Cochise County?
three things come to mind: healthcare, education, housing. It's going to be hard to push all three and make a big impact. On affordability and housing, I'm interested in some new ideas that we need to think about, particularly in rural areas, that we balance it with the difficulty of water and stuff. But why aren't we thinking about greater density but lower use of water? So, for example, can we do manufactured housing on smaller lots? That's one way to see if we can lower the cost of housing. In education, the problem is, and I'm sure you're going to allude to it later, is ESA vouchers. They do two things. They suck money out of the school system, and they make it difficult for people to continue to have their kids go to neighborhood schools. If you have to drive your child to a school, to a charter school or a private school, and you have you're two working class people, you don't have time to take your kids and ferry them to a school 10 miles away. And the third thing about healthcare is with the government, federal government, limiting Medicaid, and here it's called access, and making it difficult for people to afford good health care, we need to start to think about universal health care at the state level. And we can start to make steps through exchanges to make it easier for people to get affordable health care. And everybody has to get it, because otherwise people who have jobs, they may be unable to step up to a newer job because they're worried about losing their health care. So those three things would help the affordability crisis.
Okay, so let's move on to water, big topic right now. What should the legislature do to ensure that there's enough water for existing residents as well as future development?
We need to obviously enforce the 100-year water requirement for new development. There's a lot of debate about that. Gail Griffin doesn't believe in that. It is a theoretical issue. First thing to do is give ADWR more power to monitor commercial industrial wells, and particularly in areas like Wilcox Basin. So we don't know what the data really is on how much water is being withdrawn from the aquifer, because we haven't given them the power to the ADWR to start to monitor. That's a first step. In order to have any increase in development, we have to have some sort of water reclamation system. There have been some movements to doing that in Cochise County, but it's a real challenge. I think also we have to look at CAP, which is in Maricopa. It will have some effect in Pima, which is part of LD19. I know that the federal government has just published the latest environmental impact report on the rivers, but we need to look at the whole process. But we certainly don't want to create more law that allows water to be sold outside of a county. That water rights should not be sold outside of a county. And Graham particularly cares about that. And while it's not a big issue in Cochise, but this is bad legislation.
Arizona has overridden local zoning rules to encourage more housing development. Should lawmakers continue to go further, or should cities like Chandler decide for themselves whether and how much housing gets built? I think this would apply.
I'm really mixed on this. I have to tell you, when I was on planning and zoning, I said I'm a defender of R1 zoning, which is residential, one house on a lot, minimum sizes. And now I believe that we need to rethink that in order to lower costs of housing. However, I think it's bad policy for the state to mandate this throughout the state. And they've done it on other things other than just housing. I'll give you an example very quickly. Years ago, Bisbee passed an ordinance that they weren't going to have plastic bags anymore at the supermarkets. Okay, it's a little nutty, but I actually think it was a good idea and great for Bisbee to try it. However, the Republicans in the state legislature immediately outlawed it statewide. Bad policy. We need to believe that our local governments can be responsible or responsive to their constituents. So, I want to see the state government encourage certain types of behavior, like more density in housing.
And our last question is going to be, as you predicted, about ESAs.
Oh, good.
They cost hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Should it remain open to every student? And what accountability measures, if any, would you apply as an elected member of the legislature?
Okay. And I'm an absolutist here, which is not very popular. I do not believe it should be open to every student. This was terribly bad policy. And we somehow have gotten now the argument to be with Proposition 212, which got bounced off the ballot, that we're going to allow people with up to $150,000 to take private voucher money. Bad policy as far as I'm concerned. I believe the voucher program needs to go back to its original intent, which was vouchers for special needs students who could not get services in the public school system. That is reasonable. It was a good idea. And over the years, the Republicans in the legislature and the Republican governors kept chipping away at it and making it more broad. It's taking up to $1 billion out of the school system right now. And I just don't believe it's the right kind of tax policy.
We're going to move on to another segment. This one, I'm going to ask you how you're going to vote on a proposition that will be on the Arizona's general election ballot. After I give you a short summary, you'll have 1 minute to tell voters how you would vote and why. I'd like to talk about Proposition 318, which would require school sports teams to designate as boys, girls, and co-ed based on the athlete's biological sex at birth. This would bar athletes from using locker rooms, restrooms, and other private athletic spaces designated for the opposite sex. How do you plan to vote on this proposition and why?
This is an easy no. This is a terrible idea. This is the government overextending for no real reason. Bad policy. It's going to create invasion of individual children and their parents for trying to solve a problem that I don't believe really exists. It gets talked about a lot, but it is not a policy that we need to enforce. It can be handled at the sports level. It can be handled by sports groups. We're trying to shut down this whole idea of people being able to be who they are, and I just believe it's a terribly bad policy. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Now a quick rapid fire section before we close out our debate. So these are short questions, and we're going to aim for 15-second responses. First question is, one thing that Arizona spends too much money on.
Tax breaks for corporations.
Okay. What's one business in your district you'd order takeout for, or you would take an out-of-town visitor to?
Oh, I like that. In my district, you know what? I like Taco Giro right here in Sierra Vista. Good Mexican food, neighborhood Mexican food, very cool vibe. We go there a lot.
Great. Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, alive or dead, who would it be?
President Obama.
Okay. All right. That ends our last questions. Thank you, Bob, so much. And we're going to move on to closing statements. Bob, we're going to give you about 90 seconds to tell us a little bit about why you're running in Senate District, Legislative District 19.
Thank you, Joe. This was delightful, and I enjoy talking politics. And one of the reasons I'm running is because Gail Griffin is a professional politician. She has been in the state legislature over 24 years. She believes in term limits, but not for herself. She believes term limits are fine for the US Congress, but not for herself. I am a reform candidate. I believe strongly that we need real term limits, 12 years in the state legislature and you're done. I also believe that we need to change our election system to some degree. I am now interested in talking about ranked choice voting, which I think is an important aspect of opening up the system to more people to get involved in the legislative process. I believe that we need to change our tax policy, which Republicans don't believe in. Gail Griffin is running saying eliminate the state gas tax, eliminate grocery tax, eliminate child care tax credits. I want to know, and I want to ask Gail, how do you fund the government? I believe that all of us will pay for a government that works, that is efficient, that is fair, and allows everybody to succeed. I believe that we can provide education, good outcomes for all people in public schools. I want to see the state continue to prosper instead of falling further and further behind. I am running as a real alternative to 60 years of Republican control of the state legislature. I hope you will consider voting for me.
Great. Bob, thank you so much. I appreciate the time you gave us tonight to talk. And I want to thank our voters for tuning in and informing themselves ahead of the November 3rd election. For official voter information, you can find it at azcleanelections.gov. And this wraps up tonight's political debate. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in. We'll be back tomorrow with another debate.